In today's communication tip, I want to talk about the big bully that gets in the way of us being able to communicate effectively. It's a four-letter word called fear. Fear shrinks us, it shuts us down. And what happens with fear is stuff goes on in our mind. And when we are uncertain about things, we fill in the gaps by making stuff up. Fear makes mountains out of molehills. It makes the enemy appear far more imposing than it really is, and it may not even be an enemy at all. What's that famous Mark Twain phrase? I went through some terrible things, and some actually happened, because a lot just happens in our mind. It's not even real, but it is affecting you in a very real way. So sometimes just exposing the fear helps to unplug its power. I was talking with someone recently who was overwhelmed by a conversation she had to have. And in her mind, she was playing out all the scenarios of how it could go wrong and how she could be taken the wrong way. And she didn't want to appear ungrateful and oh, blah, 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 and on and on and on. When we are worried, we awfulize. We think of the worst case scenario, thinking that that's us doing our due diligence. But when in the history of worrying has it helped? I can't think of a time when being anxious, biting my fake nails, or stressing over something helped the situation. So I said to her, why instead of worrying about this, why don't you just go to the person and say, you know what? I've been thinking about this thing and I'd love your advice. Instead of approaching the person and saying, this is the thing, and I think this is what we have to do, which can oftentimes put people on the defensive right away, ask for their advice. They could actually come up to the solution, come up with the solution to the very thing you've been losing sleep over just because you were afraid to broach the topic. And everybody loves to feel helpful. I love when people ask me for advice. It's like my most favorite thing because I have been known to offer it unsolicited. So when it is solicited, it's like, oh, I got a green light. I can offer my opinions. People love to be helpful and they love to offer advice. So if this thing is lodging in your head and you just don't know how to approach it, go to the person and say, I got this thing and I'm wondering if you could give me some advice about it. It exposes the bully, taking the power away from it living in your head and you awfulizing. And the person might actually have a great suggestion so you can live happily ever after, or at least until the next thing comes up. Just another communication tip from Vici Communications and me, Brenda Viola, author of How to Be Heard Without Screaming. I've got 31 tips that can help change your communication for the better. So get your copy today.